Hey, welcome everyone to our live stream. It's Ned from Caspio. Let me know if you can hear me okay, and then we will begin today's presentation. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Hopefully better than my weekend. I was out there in the front yard picking out weeds. Not a fun job by any stretch of imagination, but I was out there with my spray bottle and I was spraying all the weeds so they don't come back, but I don't know. I might have to hire somebody soon to do that job for me because somehow I'm not doing it right. Because when they come back in larger numbers. You know, these weeds are stubborn and pesky little things that just keep coming back in greater numbers, and it's quite frustrating. I've tried now 2 years in a row to take care of the front yard, and I don't want to be that neighbor with the bad-looking front yard, so I might have to get some professionals to come in and do that. But yeah, fun weekend for me. Almost blew up my lower back pulling the weeds. Some of them had deep-rooted underground, and it was just really tough for me to pull them out. Anyway, that was my highlight of the weekend. But glad you guys were able to hear me okay. Hey, Brian, welcome, Josh. Stability, good to see you guys. Welcome back. We have an interesting topic today. We received a lot of inquiries from universities and K-12 schools wanting to develop some kind of a school safety or student safety dashboard. So that's why we brought that into the live stream. I put together something very simple. Obviously, it's not a full solution. It's a subset of what it eventually can become a full solution, where you can even add students to the front end. You can add parents. That functionality is all in the back end, but on the front end, I brought the dashboard where we can see stats and metrics. And then we're going to log in as a school staff as well to be able to create these incidents and be able to report for the school district. If you guys are able to see my screen, I have the dashboard here in front of us, and I'm just going to give you a quick demo of the application. So let's go ahead and log in as a school staff. I have John Doe. He is a member of one of the high schools. So we're going to log in as John. And the interface that John will be able to see will list, let's go over here to incidents. All right, so we're going to be able to see all the previously submitted incidents. And then if I want to create or open up a new incident, I can click on the button. And now I can say, well, all right, we had bullying happen today, and 2 students were bullying another student. Let me just fix my spelling here. And the date of incident, let's say it was today. Just remember on the dashboard, we have 0 incidents, okay? So that number is going to go to 1. This number is going to go to 20. These are the current month. This is current year, so this will go up to 24. And then these are the last year incidents. And what we're doing basically is taking the current year minus the last year to get the difference year over year. And then we have the incidents year over year percentage difference. So basically, it went up 91% compared to last year. So what's going to happen is when we have 24 here in just a moment, this is going to be 12. This is going to go to 100 because that's a 100% increase from last year. So let's come back here to John's portal. We're going to hit submit. And then what I can do now is I can link the students that were involved in that incident. So let's say we had Richard. We'll just put the date. We had Riley. And then we'll just do one more here. And Sean. Also, what I've created here is when you add the student, we have a many-to-many with the parents. So then when you add the student, both of the parents or however many parents will be sent an SMS message to let them know the type of incident and also description that was provided by whoever submitted that incident. So we do have an SMS going out to the legal guardians or parents of these students, all of them who are involved in this incident, and they will be notified right away via SMS. And I'll show you what that trigger looks like in just a couple of minutes. But it's a many-to-many, right? Because let's say you have a scenario where you have 2 parents, and then parents could have many kids going to the same school, which could be siblings. And let's say they have 3 kids going to the same high school. Obviously, it's a many-to-many because one parent can have many students, but that student can belong to more than one parent. So it's a many-to-many setup. So now that we've added that incident, if I come back and refresh my dashboard, we should be able to see 1, 20, 24, 12, 12, and 100% increase year over year. Okay. Obviously, that number will continue to rise up if you have more for the current year compared to last year. So it's a nice way to see, what the increase is in percentage. Underneath that, we have 4 different charts, which just gives us more visibility into the metrics. I can see all the 4 high schools in the district. We have broken down based on categories, so we can see all the different types of incidents for each high school. Total incidents by month for all the high schools that we have underneath. So if I want to hone in, I can, inside a legend, maybe I want to see Silver Lake, and I can see how many incidents we had for this high school. Then we have a bar chart that shows me highest to lowest in terms of bullying, theft, and I can further drill down if I want to. Maybe if I just want to see for Oak Ridge, I can see data just for that high school, and then we can clear that and see all the high schools. And finally, we have just the total number of incidents across all the schools combined. Another thing that I've created here on my dashboard is you can do some fun things. If you click on the link here now, or this number 1 inside a dashboard, that's going to take me to my report today's incidents. So if I click on that one, it's going to show me that incident in more detail. And finally, we can look at all the incidents where we can search. I have a pivot table here created, so it gives me a breakdown by year. I can see total 12 and 24, which is reflected on my dashboard as well. But the pivot table also allows me to drill in. So if I wanted to see, let's say, Ocean View Academy, if I click on that number 10, it just gives me all the results for Ocean View Academy. And that's really the functionality I've created so far. But remember what I said, even if you log in as the school staff, not only can you have many staff members logging into that high school to report these incidents, I only have one, but you could also create the whole system where you can add students, you can add parents, you can even have a dashboard for schools to be able to see data just for their own campus. So lots and lots of possibilities here in terms of functionality that you can bring to the front end. So now let's go into the back end and let's see how all of this was set up. So the entire solution has 8 different tables. Okay. I know it seems like a lot of tables, but let's just go through it very quickly. The first one is a lookup table that shows all the categories, okay, which can be seen on the front end. So when you add a new incident on that form, you're going to be able to see how that table looks into that lookup table to bring up all the categories. The second table is the table of incidents. Okay, so if I click on the design link, you're going to be able to see the incident ID, type of incident, which looks into that incidents lookup table. We have description. We need to link that incident to the school ID. Very important. Date created, and I also want to know which staff members submitted that incident. So this table is linked to this submission form. So when the form opens up, we submit the form, data goes directly into that table. The third table I have is the incident students table. So when you submit the form, as we saw before, I am redirected to this page, incident details, where I can see the incident details, but now I can add students that belong to that incident. So that's why my table, I call it students and incidents. So if I click on it, on design, you will be able to see. I have the incident ID, which I passed from the submission form. I have the student ID, because when I add the student to my report, I am stamping the student ID inside that table. By the way, you guys know that I give you all of this content after our live stream. So you will be able to download this entire application. So if you want to pull things from it and grab whatever you need, you're going to be able to do that. And every time I build these solutions, I always make sure I have a unique prefix, so that way it doesn't affect your existing tables in any way. You can just import it as a new application, grab whatever you find worthwhile, and then you can delete all of the content from your account if you no longer have a need for it. Then we have the join between the parents and the students. That's a many-to-many table that joins the parents with the students. Okay, because I have a separate table for my parents and I have a separate table for my students. The join table is simply stamping the foreign key or the primary key as a foreign key inside the join table between the parents and the students. I have a parents table, so you can collect whatever information you want for your parents. first name, last name, email, phone, and then the student ID that's going to be associated with the parent. And then we have the school staff. The school staff table is actually my directory that I created. Okay, and inside that directory, again, you can have any field that you want. But for me, we have last name, full name, email, password, so that we can log in as the staff member from that directory. And I'm leaning towards using directories more and more because it's more secure. And it's easier to set up the application because you really just see one login screen, and then when you log in, you see multiple data pages. Plus, it's more secure because you can enable two-factor authentication, and you have a lot more password security policies that you can enable. And then we have the schools table and the students table. The schools table is a very simple table where we can just see the school ID, name, address, and city. And then, of course, you can list any other field that you'd like for your schools. All right, so let's take a look at our data pages. So we have two folders, one for admin and one for the school rep that they can log in. So when I log in, I'm able to see view incidents. So if I log in as school staff, I will be able to see this data page that shows me all the data. Once again, we're using a modal pop-up to open up the form. You guys have seen that tutorial many times now. You could also build this using standard features if you have another tab here maybe. Or maybe you want to embed the form above the report, which you could do. So when you submit the form, you're going to be able to see the data entered inside a list. And then you can filter it. You can use the drop-down. You can do a date range if you'd like. To be able to bring the report and see the data that you need. So that's view incidents. Then we have incident details, which is a very simple data page. So when I go into the details page, I'm able to see that at the very top. It's just going to list all of the results for that incident. And in the process, you're passing the incident ID inside a URL in order for you to filter out that data page. Then we have the create incident. That's the submission form that we looked at. And then add students to incident. So I would say this is probably the one that we should edit so that you can see how that was done. So when you add the student to the incident, I'm passing the incident ID. I actually have a hidden field on this report that's receiving the incident ID. And upon submission, we are stamping that incident ID into that students and incidents table. So let's take a look. You can see my data source is students and incidents. We hit next, next. I'm receiving the incident ID from the URL. And on my report, there's my incident ID field. It's a hidden field. I receive the external parameter incident ID. So upon submission, when I add the student inside the report, I'm able to stamp the incident ID into that separate table. All right. And then we have the administrator. So let's go over here on my dashboard view. I'm not going to get into charts. You guys know how to build charts by now. It shouldn't be too difficult to create charts and also have a search form appear above the chart. Probably the most important thing is how do we get these calculations, which I've done before in previous live streams if you've attended. But all I did here is let me bring in my notepad. So I downloaded this template from the internet. It was a free template. If anybody wants the template, let me know via email. I'll send you to the link. Actually, I'll just include a link in the description of the video. So if you want to download the same template, you can. But here's the page for my dashboard. Okay, the very first Caspio data page that you see contains all of this HTML and CSS for these boxes. All I did in my template, I copied all of that HTML and I paste that HTML inside my Caspio data page. So I used a details page. Okay, we're going to hit next, next, next. And now inside the header of my data page, I paste all of that code that I copied from the actual template. Because when you deploy this data page back into your template, it's going to render all that HTML. It's just basically like having the HTML inside your template, except it's now living inside the Caspio data page. And the reason why we do that is because I want to feed those values that I calculated inside each one of those boxes. Okay. So now how do we calculate everything? So we have our calculated fields on the left-hand side. And I think the first one we're going to look at is today's incidents. So let's see, today's incidents. All right, so it's very simple. One line of SQL that you need. So select count incident ID from the incidents table. Okay, so that's the main table where all the incidents are stored. And then you convert the date, which is your field in that table. My field is called date created, equals convert date get date. So it just gets today's date and is able to populate all the incidents for that current date, inside that box. So when you get the calculated field, when you get the value here inside the calculated field, all you're going to do is go back into your header, and I have it as the very first box, today's incidents, as you can see. And all I did was just insert that calculated field as a parameter here inside the header, which is pulling information from this calculated field. Okay. I can see I have questions coming in, so give me 1 second. Let me take a look. Can directories be used for SaaS type services yet? No, not yet. So don't use directories if you're building a SaaS type solution. If you're building an internal solution, then I recommend using directories, because we don't have the ability to feed data using a registration form into a directory yet. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, please don't use directories for SaaS type solutions, only for internal model. And let's see, this is awesome. Yeah, thank you, Monica. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. I always bring this up, when they see code like this, they think it's very complicated, and it can be if you've never done this before, but I promise you that it's really not that bad. Especially if you know some basic HTML. This is a template. I use Notepad++ to edit my HTML. And as I said before, all this has, so if I take all this div, right? If I copy all of this right now, copy it, and I paste this right up here. Okay, that's what came with my template. All I did was just copy that code. I copied that portion, okay, and I paste that portion in the header of my data page. Same exact thing, okay? And now I'm using my calculated field to get these values, all right? So then looking at my second box, we have current month. So let's see, current month, this one up here. So select count incident ID from the incidents table, and now you actually have to get it for month and year, okay? Because if you just do month, it's actually going to give you the answer for all the months in previous years as well. So you need to get it for the current year and current month. That's why we use where year date created equals year. So get the date, and also and month, date created equals month, get date. Okay, so both of those. So you need that a logical operator here in between for and. Next one that we have is current year. So again, very simple. Let's see, total this year. And for this one, you just get the year. Okay, you don't need to worry about the month. Okay, so now here's where it gets a little bit complicated. We want to get the total for last year. Okay, so let's see for last year. Not too complicated. Actually, it's still where year date created equals year date add year minus 1 get date. So if you follow it, it basically gets the year but minus 1, which means for previous year get the data. Okay. And again, you'll have all of this available to you so that you can quickly just grab it if you need it and use it in your own applications. The fourth one is the difference. So we take the current year minus last year. So this one should be very simple. Let me see here, year-over-year difference. Right, so now we can use a nested value, the nested calculation, to take the current year minus last year. And that's a very simple subtraction to get that. And all you're doing is simply taking the calculated value, which is current year, total this year, minus last year to get this answer, basically. And the final one, which is probably the most complicated one, is the percentage difference. So where are you? Complicated in a way that you have to know how to set it up in Caspio to get that to be 100%, 90% to get the calculation. So again, you'll see very similar to what we just looked at. You get that number 12, or subtraction from current year minus last year to get 12 times 100. Okay, that's 1200. And you divide by last year. Okay, which is 12. And then you get 100%. Okay, so hopefully it's not too bad of an equation, but you just have to know how to set up the parentheses in order to calculate this first. Okay, standard operating procedure. So you get you do subtraction first. You times by 100, so you calculate that, and you divide by last year to get your percentage. And then all you do is take this calculation and feed that into the header of your data page, and that's the very last one here. And at the end of it, I just put the percentage sign, so it looks like it's percentage. Okay, so that's what you see on my dashboard. You're going to be able to see that. When it comes to dashboards, there's so many different ways of setting this up. In fact, if I thought about this ahead of time, I'm actually using the data from the same table. And as I mentioned before, if you're going to be using data from the same table on your dashboard, then you can just get away with having one search form. I could have actually taken the search form and put it up here above my boxes. And when I run the search, it's actually filtering everything underneath, all the charts and all the boxes inside my details data page. However, if you're building your dashboards based on multiple tables, then you're going to have to include the search form in each one of your charts, because there's just no way to filter data from multiple tables on a single dashboard. So it's depending on your setup, right? So if it's one table, then you can get away with something like this. I'll show you a live example so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. CLCRM. So let's log in as Corey. So in this example, you can see I have one search form, but based on my selection, everything underneath will filter at the same time. And it's really just for that one employee, including the pivot table that I have down here. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. That's really all the content that I have for today's live stream. As I said at the beginning, lots and lots of different ways of setting up dashboards in a fun way, depending on what kind of data you want to see. And this can be applied for many different grades, school grades. It doesn't have to be, in this example, it's high school, but you can do K through 12, you can do universities, you can do private schools, any school really. And the benefit is, which I think I'll find helpful eventually, is to get that SMS from school staff if my kid was involved in, I don't know, was suspended or detention or bullying or theft or something else. I want to be notified via SMS. Oh, that's one thing I didn't show you. I apologize. We need to look at that trigger really quickly. All right. So the trigger is done on this table because when you add the student, right, to the incident, when you apply the student to the incident, we want to send the text to both parents for that student. Okay, so we create the variable. I just random name for the variable parent phone number. You can call this variable whatever you want. First thing you do is you join the inserted table, the student ID, to the join table between the parents and the students, so that we can get the parent-student ID and the parent ID for those students. Okay, because student can have many parents, so we want to be able to grab the both the parent ID and the student ID. And then you do a loop for each record for those phone numbers. You want to send the SMS. Okay, and then with the first join that you see here is join the incidents table with the incident ID to the inserted incident ID, so that we can grab the information from the incidents table and put that information inside the SMS. So that's why we make this join here with the incidents table, because the incident students table doesn't have these two fields. It doesn't have the description, it doesn't have the type of incident. So we need to join those two tables in order to grab that information. The second join that you see here is we have to get the right student ID in order to get the parent information as well that belongs to that student ID. And the final join that you see here at the bottom is so that we can grab the phone number of the parent, okay, from the parents table. And we populate that in the outgoing phone number field. And finally, where the phone is not blank, so the phone cannot be blank, okay? And we have to make sure we get the right student record and also the parent record. Because like I said, if you have multiple siblings, brother and sister, you have to make sure you have get the phone numbers for each parent, for each student. I mean, that's why we run the loop for all of the students that have the corresponding parents, right? Because Sally and Tom could have the same set of parents, so we have to run that loop for each student in order to pull those phone numbers for all the parents that belong to to those students. So it's a very simple trigger. You can study that trigger if you'd like, if you need to do something like that for your own applications as well. Okay. Let me see, anything else worth mentioning? But it's a fairly simple setup. It didn't take too long. This took me maybe half a day to put together. Because I don't have too many data pages. Really, the most time-consuming part of this was to build the nice-looking front end with the dashboard. And then I'll just tell you what we'll cover next week. So next week, we're going to be, live stream is going to be on Wednesday. So starting next week, we're moving the live stream to Wednesday at 10 a.m. So please remember. And we're going to be talking about employee onboarding, which is also another one of those requests that we get quite a bit, where you have the HR, when you hire a new staff employee, you want to be able to see the progress of their onboarding. So we have a couple of checkboxes. Let's say the new hire had their orientation. We want to check that. They signed all the paperwork. We want to check that off as well. They met the team. Let's say we have a checkbox for that. And as soon as you check off these items, it's going to be grayed out, and you won't be able to check that off as an employee so that you can see your progress. But as the HR, you're going to be able to check and uncheck if the new employee has not gone through the entire onboarding process. And then finally, once you've checked off all the boxes, I'd like to have one more checkbox at the end that reads onboarding completed, which will be a trigger. So once all the checkboxes are checked, that one is automatically checked as well at the end. Okay, so then, yeah, this is one of those that we get quite a bit for employee onboarding, which could be helpful for many Caspio customers as well, especially if they're building internal applications with new hires. So that's what we'll talk about next Wednesday. Let me take a look from Heather. We have in the parents table, you have the student ID. But it's so good catch there, actually. You don't need that student ID in the parents table. In fact, that was a mistake on my end. You can delete the student ID from the parents table because we do have that many-to-many. So nice catch. So in fact, you can, good catch there. So I left it in here because I forgot to remove it, but you can delete that student ID. There's absolutely no need for it. Yeah. Sometimes I forget to delete my fields. I was thinking of a different workflow, different way of setting it up, but then I didn't want to make it too simple, so I decided to just give you the actual real way of setting that up, which is a many-to-many. Yeah, that's how it would be set up in the real world. Any estimate of when directories will be available for SaaS? That's a good question. No estimate, really. I know that the team is working on it. I wish I can tell you more. I can't. I'm not allowed to, permitted to. But I'll find out as soon as I can in terms of when SaaS will be available for directories. It's a good question. I'm also wondering about that myself. And I kind of know the answer, but I just can't give you the answer because I cannot overpromise and then underdeliver. That's just not something I want to get into like I've done before. So, especially that one still haunts me. The UI controls, not being able to filter the data in real time on the same page right away. That really bugs me. We won't tell? Yes. I expect that the live stream has to remain live on YouTube, and if somebody happens to watch the video, somehow it'll find its way back to our support team, where somebody will say, well, Ned said that it's going to come out this week, and then the support team will relay that message over to our management team, and then it'll come back to me, and then there it goes. All right. So hopefully today's content was fun and enjoyable. Again, you'll have the entire application available as a download in the description. Just come back a little bit later today to the YouTube video. You can download it. And it's always helpful. That's why in my account, I always keep everything that I've developed in the past. You can see all of my applications. Of course, I have many more accounts where I have all these things that I've developed in the past. But I keep it in my account so I can pull it up later. If I'm building something different, I can always come back to it and just copy and paste. I don't have to rebuild something from scratch, you know. Okay, good. Glad that you found it helpful. I've done other videos on dashboards too, some that are in much more detail from start to finish. That's why I don't spend too much time building things out. I just give you the solution. I talk about it and how it was created, and then I give it to you as a download so that you can take it and do whatever you want with it. But if you want to see a detailed video on how to put together a dashboard, I have done that in the past. Just look for Caspio dashboard on YouTube, and you'll find a few videos that talk about it. And we actually go from start to finish, where we build out all the data pages, not just a finished solution. And as always, I did receive one comment on YouTube to talk about some best practices. I will take that into consideration. And we'll bring that into the live stream. I can't remember who that comment came from, but it had to do with like related tables and drop downs, not to see the ID, but to see the actual name. Having a hard time remembering who that came from, so I apologize if you're here. Okay, good. Glad to hear, Heather. Thanks for the feedback there. So yeah, we have some other stuff coming up in the live stream. Next week we'll talk about the onboarding, and then I still have to figure out what I'm going to bring in for the following week. But if you have any suggestions, what you would like to see, even if it's the application that you need to develop, let me know. If it's something that we can put together, not necessarily the entire app, but the workflow where we just put together the tables and some simple data pages, it'll at least give you the foundation of what you need, and you can download it. And I don't have to build your exact solution. We can pick a different industry, but it has the same workflow. I'm okay with that as well. Just keep in mind that the tables, for those types of applications, if you want me to develop something like that, the tables will only have maybe 2 or 3 fields, not all of your fields, but they'll have all the important fields that you'll need, the primary keys, the foreign keys, and all that good stuff. Okay, and then we'll build out a few data pages, and it'll just serve as a foundation for your bigger application that you need to develop. But at least you have the table structure down correctly. All right, I'm open to those inquiries as well. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for coming back. I appreciate your time, as always. We'll see you next week. Have a good rest of the Monday and rest of the week. And then hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday. Don't forget, on Wednesday next week, we are moving the live stream to that day. Let's see. Have you developed an invoicing and payment system? Invoicing and payment system? No, I have not. Only because the payment requires me, the payment gateway that we have, PayPal and Stripe, requires me to create the account and provide sensitive information. I don't want to go that far to giving these. Not that it's not secure. It is secure to do that, but I don't want to accidentally expose some of my own personal information in these live streams. But to answer your question, I haven't really built anything with the payment and invoicing. Invoicing can be done in Caspio, but it's a little bit. It involves coding to do so with the invoicing, only because to download the invoice, we have to put a tabular report that shows the labor and the parts and all of that related to the invoice as an iframe inside another report. So inside a details data page. So imagine a details data page that has, again, HTML block that has the customer information and your information in the upper left and upper right. And then underneath that information, you have a tabular report that's embedded as an iframe inside the HTML block that shows line by line items for that invoice. So that when you download the PDF, it downloads not only the customer and your business information, and also that tabular report underneath which is an iframe inside that details data page. Do I have something like that? I might have created something like that a long time ago. Let me see. Hey, maybe I do have something like that. So let me see here. So if I create a new invoice, let's just start from scratch. So if I create a new invoice, let's say we select the customer, that should populate my info here. Date of issue to the 10th. Payment due date, maybe the 14th. We hit submit. That was for Eileen. Okay. So now we add what I was talking about. So let's say parts. We need 50 of these. Description, light bulbs. I don't know. Just make something up. Light bulbs are costing us $5 each. Hit add. That's going to be $2.50, I believe. Yeah. And let's just also add labor. So it took us maybe 1 hour to install light bulbs. And let's just do 2 hours because we want to get that calculation as well. So let's say we charge $75 per hour. That should be $150. Yeah. And then we get the total and then we generate the invoice. Let's see what happens. Right. So that's what I was talking about, where you have who you're billing it to. You have your company information show up here, and then we have the invoice info, and then you have what you just added, including the tax, show up. So when you download the PDF, I think this will open up a new tab here. Let me see. Yeah, so it brings it up like that, and then you can print that. But what it's doing, it's taken the this is 2 data pages inside one data page. So we have the details, and then we have another data page as an iframe embedded into the HTML block of this details data page. Okay, email me offline. We just received checks in the mail, old school. Okay. So I don't know if this was what you were hoping to see, Steven, something like that, but I did develop, as you can see, an invoicing system. It's not as elegant. I can make it look elegant with the addition of more HTML and CSS, but it was really built to showcase the functionality. It's just there's some workarounds around it. It's not a standard feature in Caspio to put together something like that. But usually, like I think most of our customers, when it comes to payments, is they process the payments offline with their own existing system. But you can, if you integrate Stripe and PayPal, you could send them a submission form, maybe a link to that invoice, and then underneath that you have payment fields. So if you were doing something like, let me think for a second. Looking at my training management app. So if I log in as, let's say this is a customer login in, mary@customer.com, test 1, 2, 3. What happened? mary@customer.com, test 1, 2, 3. Okay. So don't worry about this. Let's just say I log in and I see an invoice that belongs to me. It's been assigned to me by the employer or somebody, the company. And I click on the link to pay or pay invoice. I can see the details of that invoice. And then underneath that, I can see the cost. And I just have to provide my payment information. Hit submit, and then I can pay that invoice. And then, of course, you change the status to paid. And I no longer see that listed here, or I can see an update to the status that says paid as opposed to pending or something like that. But here, this is using payment integration with Caspio, Stripe and PayPal. PayPal or Stripe. So you could do that if you have the details of a job or something like that listed with all that information. Customer logs in and they can pay, because it's a one-time payment. It's not a recurring payment. We cannot do recurring payments, but one-time payments you could do. All right. All right, let's not extend the live stream anymore. Thank you so much for attending. I truly appreciate you coming back every week. Hopefully, moving it to Wednesday won't affect and cause too much of an inconvenience, since we've had this routine going on for, let's say, like 2 years now, 3 years. So yeah, we're moving it to Wednesday. I'll let you guys go. Have a good rest of the week, and then we'll see you next week. Okay? And don't forget to email me if you have suggestions or anything you'd like to see in the live stream. I am happy to bring that into the live stream if I think that it's worthwhile for everyone else. All right. Farewell. We'll see you next week, and I'll keep the chat running for a few more minutes, but I will close the screen right now.